Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and it is the top of the month, so once again, we are working on another MMIW episode, and we are still in the A's. All right, let's begin, shall we? Angel Carlick was born in Dease Lake in northern British Columbia. Her youth started out with a struggle. She found herself using drugs and living on the street. But she managed to get clean and earned a high school diploma at age 19. She moved to Whitehorse, where Angel worked at the Youth of Today's Society, a resource center running a dinner program where she made meals for children. Angel was saving money for her own home with the goal of getting her younger brother out of the Yukon's child welfare system. Her love and passion for art was evident, as she had painted several murals, some even at the center's walls, one of which Brother Billy took a photo of her in front of when she graduated high school. Then, in May of 2007, she just didn't show up for work. Her employer, Vicki Durant, stated, quote, "It was payday, so we were really concerned," end quote. Vicki had hired her on a year prior, but had known Angel since she was about 14 and knew she wasn't going to miss work. So her boss immediately called the Whitehorse RCMP and filed a missing persons report. Once again, she reported that the RCMP didn't show any real care or concern for the case, which, if you've been listening to these episodes, you know is unfortunately pretty much a running theme of things. Quote, "At first, I think the police thought that she may have been just a runaway, being that she was a teenager. We, of course, knew better," end quote, she said, going on to say, quote, "The first 48 hours, as far as timeline goes, is the most important, so I think they kind of lost a lot of really vital time," end quote. Shortly before she was missing, some family had stopped to see her. Of that time, her uncle, William Carlick, stated, quote, "The last time we saw her, we went with her to the place she was working downtown. She was cooking up, and she was serving soup. She was happy then, too," end quote. She was last seen with 2 identified males, neither of which have come forward to assist in the case. Family states that for months there was a lack of investigation. There was nothing, and so they formed their own search party. Quote, "People come together like this for one purpose. For the love of my life," end quote, Wendy Carlick, Angel's mom, said, referring to the around 40-ish people who searched the riverbanks in Whitehorse, Yukon one July weekend, looking for Angel. Still, it wasn't until 5.5 months later that on November 9th, 2007, a hiker found her body in a wooded area in Pilot Mountain, which is in Yukon near Whitehorse. Angel's death was ruled a homicide, though the pathologist who examined her remains unfortunately could not determine her cause of death, likely due to the state of her. Furthermore, it is unknown if she was killed there or was placed there after. To honor her memory, the Youth of Today's Society named their drop-in program Angel's Nest in 2008. The RCMP in their handling of the case again, like I said, seemed to be lacking from the family perspective. Wendy stated, quote, "If it was a non-native person, it doesn't take long for them to solve," end quote. Vicki also expressed concern about the lack of attention to the case, but reported that the RCMP, quote, "They usually contact us probably about April of every year just to give us an update," end quote. Still, the case remains unsolved at this time. Her brother believes that due to the RCMP handling of the cases, when the missing are Indigenous. In another blow to the family, Wendy Carlick was murdered in 2017, along with her friend Sarah McIntosh, in Whitehorse. Wendy was known in the community as a missing and murdered Indigenous woman and girls advocate after the murder of her daughter. In 2020, Yukon's RCMP's Historical Case Unit or HCU, appealed to the public for help, asking anyone with information concerning her homicide investigation to come forward. Still, like I said, this case remains unsolved. Angela Carmen Pitsiolak Meyer was born in 1988, an Inuk woman from the northern community of Telodruk, also known as Teloyak. Kathy Myers, Angela's mother, described her as, quote, her smile, so many. She was such a good baby. She exuded a lot of love. She loved to be hugged. She talked to anybody. She was a people person. Everyone was important, end quote. Angela loved to put on makeup, do her nails, color her hair, and buy new clothes. When she was young, she seemed to have a large circle of friends. But when she was about 15, she started showing signs of schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and she was diagnosed with schizophrenia pretty quickly after. By the time she went missing, she was really struggling with her mental illness. To this, Kathy stated, quote, she was a very good and loyal friend. Of course, people drift away when they don't understand her illness, end quote. After being diagnosed, she was put on medication. The side effects were weight gain, and eventually she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Still, Angela strived to be part of her community and was named Athlete of the Year following the Yellowknife Special Olympics in spring of 2010. According to the family, their lack of finances gave them little options to treat Angela, and as such, she ended up having to stay at Stanton Territorial Hospital, where she could be treated inpatient for her schizophrenia. She was under the legal guardianship of her mother and taking several medications again. Angela was able to come home to Yellowknife on a weekend pass in November of 2010. On November 27th, she told her mother she was going to step out for a cigarette, and that's the last she was ever seen. Angela's case was initially treated as a runaway because she had run away on 3 other occasions, but her family does not think she was running away at this time. She questions if someone grabbed her or took off, or if Angela decided she had had enough. Regardless, the family says Angela's disappearance wasn't a priority in the Yellowknife RCMP. Quote, we felt more could have been done, end quote, Kathy said. She also went on to say, quote, we had friends here organize a search right after Christmas in January, and that's when the RCMP went out with a helicopter. A lot of times when hunters go missing up here, there's a search and rescue sent out right away. I don't know why they felt she was any different, end quote. Since Angela's disappearance, RCMP have been in contact with the family approximately 5 times. According to Kathy, RCMP contacted family shortly before February of 2015 to let them know a different officer was taking over Angela's case. In January of 2018, the family spoke out about Angela's case at the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry in Yellowknife, saying the biggest issue in the North was not having enough support for mental health. When it comes to a federal inquiry into Canada's missing and murdered Indigenous girls and women, Kathy went on to state, quote, the story has been told. I understand that for all the other missing and murdered Aboriginal girls and women. Then I go beyond that and think about all the missing people. The other side of me, I wonder what other inquiries, what has become of them? Has anything been done? End quote. There's been no other updates from her case, and Angela remains missing at this time. Angela Hazel Williams was born in 1970. She spent her childhood on the coast between Campbell River, British Columbia, and her father's home community on Guilford Island. Her sister, Eliza Willier, reported that she was raised by her aunt and uncle there. According to her, Angela struggled with growing up away from her siblings and her mother. Their mom took the rest of the family to the lower mainland when Angela was about 4 or 5 years old. Quote, at a very young age, I didn't really understand why she lived there. I didn't know the whole story until I was a lot older, end quote, she said, further stating, quote, "It wasn't a very healthy relationship with my mother and stepfather we're in. She thought it was best that she not take her because of the family, and it would just save my sister from the tug of war," end quote. Still, Angela grew up to be a caretaker of the family, much like her mother, who would help anyone in need in whatever way she could. Quote, "Every time she was in my presence, she just brought me comfort. She reminded me a lot of my mother. Her demeanor, a kind, loving person. She was the kind of person you liked to be around," end quote, Eliza said. For a while, Angela struggled with addiction, but began to settle down in Comox, British Columbia, and had 3 daughters with a man she met while in recovery. Angela worked 3 jobs while attending hairdressing school, while they built a home of their own. Then Eliza stated, quote, "We thought she was doing really well, and I don't know what happened. They both relapsed, and the next thing you know, my sister shows up on my doorstep one day," end quote. The family moved to Vancouver when Angela separated from her partner. Eliza stated, quote, "She started going downtown to Hastings Street, getting involved with different people. I don't know. And yeah, she lost her kids," end quote. Angela's daughters were taken in by an extended family member, Margaret Green, with the idea that Angela would get clean and have them back home with her. By 2001, Angela was renting a basement suite in Vancouver trying to get her daughters back. It was then that she hit another rough patch. The family found out later Angela accumulated a large drug debt and was working in the sex trade to pay it back. In early December 2001, she visited a drop-in center and told a worker there she was worried something bad would happen to her. The center worker gave her a bus ticket to go to her aunt's house, even offering to give Angela a ride to the station, which unfortunately Angela refused. That's the last sighting of her. The family soon knew something was wrong. Angela failed to show up for a birthday lunch with her ex, and then her daughter's birthday. Eliza reported, quote, "And then her eldest daughter actually went back to see her dad for the holidays. Still, nobody had heard from Ange. We knew right then and there something was wrong because she wouldn't have let her daughter go without saying goodbye," end quote. Margaret reported her missing to Vancouver police, then canvassed the streets with family to try and find her, stating, quote, "We kind of traced where she was, but then we found out from some homeless guy on the street that there had been a report in a Surrey paper that they were looking for a Jane Doe they'd thought found out in Surrey. And he said it sounded like the woman that we were looking for in posters," end quote. Eliza called the Surrey RCMP and sent over medical and dental records, receiving confirmation in about an hour that the Jane Doe was Angela. Angela died on December 13, 2001, roughly 2 weeks before she was reported missing. Her body was found dumped in a ditch in Surrey, British Columbia, on Colebrook Road. According to Green, police told the family she died after being strangled. In regards to the investigation, Eliza stated, quote, "I just didn't feel like it was a priority to them to find her because it was just another Native girl missing from the downtown east side," end quote. About having the case be unsolved, Eliza also stated, quote, "And it's sad because her kids had to grow up without a mother. Now her grandkids have no grandmother. I mean, my sister was a human being. She had a big heart. She was a loving person, and she didn't deserve this. We were robbed. She was one of the most loving people you could possibly take away from our family, and it's a big loss. It really is," end quote. And again, unfortunately, her case has never been solved. Angela Poorman was born on January 6, 1985. Angela grew up in the Kawakatus First Nation in Saskatchewan and spent much of her childhood living with her aunt and cousin. She moved back with her mom in her early teens, finishing grade 7. She moved to the Winnipeg's Minto neighborhood, eventually having 3 children of her own. She was unfortunately the victim of domestic violence for years, and this resulted in the loss of her children to Child and Family Services. When she did move back to the Minto neighborhood, she returned with a mission. She was finishing her education, working on obtaining her high school equivalency. This was all in an effort to move forward and get her children back. Angela's mother, Janet Poorman, stated, quote, "She was a very honest person. She was always happy, made a bad situation into a good situation, and never had a bad word to say about anybody," end quote. Then, on the morning of December 14, 2014, a passerby found the now 29-year-old Angela Poorman lying in the street in one of Winnipeg's most troubled neighborhoods. She had been stabbed and would succumb to her injuries at the hospital. It took until November of 2016 for a man to finally be arrested in connection with her death. Unfortunately, he was underage at the time of the murder, and so his name was never released. The court heard that he stabbed her, allegedly, over an argument for $20. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in January of 2018, and he was given the maximum youth sentence, 4 years in custody, and 3 years in supervision in the community. Quote, "Our family forgives you. I hope you get the help you need," end quote, said Vita Gamble, Angela's half-sister, during sentencing. While oldest daughter, Nadia Cryer, who was then 16, read a poem to the man who killed her mother. Nadia and Candace Foreman made the trip from Saskatoon to Winnipeg to make victim impact statements at sentencing. Nadia said she has not yet forgiven the man, but she doesn't want to be angry for the rest of her life. And I'm leaving you on a solved case because I feel like so many of these go left open-ended, and I just wanted to, though short, leave with one closed case. To all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.